I have been employed at a museum for the past 8 months or so. It's a beautiful, very old art museum that's also rather sizable. Nightly upkeep is my job. Being a large museum, there are often 4 of us that work the evening shifts. Some displays need to be cleaned and maintained often. For the tourists, we must ensure that they are in the finest condition possible. About 6 weeks ago, I was working one evening, and everything seemed to be going as usual. In a few rooms, I took charge of everything. Then it was time for me to take a rest. Given that I and my few coworkers were at work, we would be the only ones in the museum lunchroom when we had our breaks. I walked inside and got my lunch. I heard a loud pounding coming from the lunchroom door not even 10 minutes later. It moved quickly and loudly as if somebody truly wanted to enter. Although the door was just not bolted or whatever, I stood up, strolled up to it, and opened it. There was no one there when I walked in the door. Before I opened it, the knocking had already been going on for a split second. Although they were not the kind of coworkers to pull a joke on me, I assumed perhaps one of them was. Then I recalled some legends I had heard about our museum being cursed. Though I disregarded him, I assumed that since the building was so ancient, it was what people were saying. I returned to the lunchroom. However, I supported the door this time. No further banging was heard. 10 minutes later, though, I heard somebody pausing in the corridor. I hurried over, but once again, found nothing. I was a little uneasy the remainder of the night as I returned to work after that. The following month or so passed. And other than the odd hearing of unusual noises, I did not have any weird experiences. However, just the previous week, I was working in a space with a taller roof. I had to be on a ladder because I had to change some light bulbs. I would guess that I was around 25 feet above the floor when I was at the top of the ladder. I focused entirely on unhooking the light bulb while I made the replacement. I could hear footsteps entering the room while I was doing this. I made the choice to completely change the bulb before going to see whether anyone was there. Once more, I thought it would be a coworker. I even yelled, "What's happening?" as I heard them enter. But they didn't answer my questions. The ladder I was standing on then started to move after I heard and felt it being kicked from below. The ladder began to tremble and almost toppled over. I was inches away from hitting the ground. I stumbled and lost my equilibrium as a result. However, I managed to catch myself on the ladder a little bit lower down. The ladder was able to stop swaying and become steady. Nevertheless, I dropped a light bulb, which snapped when it reached the ground below. I gathered myself and gazed around to see absolutely no one there. I quickly descended the ladder and circled the area until I came across one of my colleagues. I explained the situation to them. We 3 changed the light bulb to ensure that nothing else transpired because they were astonished. That happened just a week ago. And ever since the most recent episode, which I have no clue how to describe, but which might have gravely hurt me, I have been thinking of resigning. My final year of graduation was when this occurred. I am a 25-year-old girl. So a few years ago, one of my humanities courses and I were doing a field trip as a class to a museum of art. I was unable to go since it was on a day when I was ill. My absence from it didn't truly bother me, until I noticed that the students had completed one of those fill-in-the-blank assignments while they were there. The school was just not too far from the museum. The lecturer then advised me that I could do the work on my own time or obtain a pass from the institution and receive it for free. I could then make it up that way. I was quite serious about my academics. I made the decision to go the following Tuesday morning. To get the museum out of the way and begin the task, I arrived there immediately after it opened. The project essentially consisted of posing questions about each exhibition, some of the artwork, and the artists who produced it. The task was lengthy. The museum was quite empty when I arrived, so I was glad to be early because it gave me a chance to take my time and finish everything. But around midway through, I saw a man enter the space I was in, and for almost 1 minute straight, he just stared at me which was sufficient to leave me feeling quite uneasy. After moving on to another location, it was perhaps 10 minutes before I saw him again. I was closer to the museum at that time. The area I was in could be seen from a point about 30 feet above. The guy was alone at the apex, looking at me once more when I glanced. I hardly glanced at him. When I looked, he grinned and motioned for me to approach him. I again turned aside because I was not intending to do that. He had severely unkempt hair, a scruffy beard, and appeared to be at least 40 years old. I moved quickly to complete the rest of my task. Then, at the very end, the guy appeared to just keep up with me everywhere I went. I considered informing the museum officials about him. However, I didn't believe he was much more than a strange man I could ignore without causing issues. Simply put, I did not want to make more than was necessary. So I tried my best to complete the 40-question assignment. I finished it in approximately an hour. But at last, I was finished. It was great that the person seemed to have stopped pursuing me. I walked out of the gallery and toward my car. But as soon as I opened it, I noticed the person emerging from behind my vehicle. I thought I was suffering a heart attack as soon as I saw him. He quickly rushed in my direction, and I moved to the side just in time to avoid him. When I was an undergraduate student and taking a famous history course there, we went on a field trip to a museum several years ago. When we all gathered on campus, the lecturer and the students boarded a bus and traveled a short distance by foot to a nearby museum. The museum was far larger than I had anticipated. The teacher then chatted with us, while showing us around for a bit before letting us finish the rest of the way on our own. Along with my classmate Ryan, I headed towards the entrance of the museum. We intended to see some of the extremely amazing outdoor displays again. Since the museum was so large, it took us some time to find it when we finally did. It featured several interconnected rooms with dark ceilings and backgrounds that truly gave the impression that you were actually within the displays. We noticed a man inside the space when we approached. I did not realize that he was the only other guy in the area. But as soon as we entered the room, the guy appeared to leave. But he proceeded to a place where it was very evident that no one was permitted in. He then appeared to enter a rear room. He did not work there, as far as I was aware. Since museum employees wore striped shirts, this individual was dressed in all blue. It had an odd feeling about it. Soon before we were all meant to return to our cars and leave, around 10 minutes later, I once again noticed the guy with Ryan. Once more, he entered the space, but this time we were in a different one. He emerged via the back room's other door. He remained still for a moment, simply looking at us. I turned my head aside and appeared not to see him. He was still gazing, though, as I could tell. I had a good feeling that he wasn't a museum employee, and I had a nasty feeling about him because of the way he was gazing at us. We made the decision to leave one area and enter another. And as we were underway, it appeared that the man would approach us. He was approximately 30 feet away. As a result, we were able to escape the space before he entered. Afterward, we exited the room we were in and immediately moved across the corner to another. It was a museum, like I mentioned, that was kind of simple to get trapped in. We also didn't want to converse with the man. In order to get back to where the majority of the remaining folks were, we traveled from room to room. When I looked around, the lecturer had already begun informing everyone that we would be departing. As everyone returned to the room, we waited there for a short while. Then I witnessed 2 museum employees enter the room and declare that the museum was going into lockdown. We were promptly reunited as a group, imprisoned in an adjacent room, and forced to wait there with all the doors shut. After the lockdown had been lifted, which took around 20 minutes, we were able to board the bus once more and return to the campus. I later learned that one had assaulted a mouse attacking to fled after seeing that had fled advertisement that we had. When I consider what the man could have had in mind for us, while he was making his way toward Ryan knowing, it truly creeps me out.